In case you missed it, Apple announced last Tuesday that they would be unveiling the new iPhone and that iPhone would use 5G. Ooh, what does that mean? Is 5G the future or is it a hoax? Overpowered or overhyped? Strap in, kids. Today, we're going to talk about the politics of innovation, electromagnetic waves, the stupidity of smart homes, and the vulnerability of the Internet of Things. If you didn't know, 5G actually stands for fifth generation, as in the fifth generation of mobile networks. 1G, the first generation, was analog phones that could really only do voice calls. They're those huge box phones you see like in 80s movies. Also, if anyone has one of those or has ever had one of those, do you have it or like a picture of it? Because I want to see that in real life. And I have looked it up, so I know what it looks like, but it's better coming from you. 2G just gave us more bandwidth, meaning the ability to send more data. That came with text messages, pictures, and the most advanced of these 2G devices also gave us internet access. This is the generation of the original iPhone. 3G and 4G LTE basically just gave us even more bandwidth, meaning faster speeds for all the functions we already had. 5G is meant to advance on 4G LTE in a few familiar ways. It's meant to deliver high peak data speeds, super low latency, increased reliability, huge network capacity, and increased availability. Too long didn't watch, it's fast. Really fast. Faster than your home Wi-Fi in some places. Obviously, this sounds great. We all want faster internet speeds. And this applies not only to mobile service providers and ISPs, it also has some pretty exciting implications for things like self-driving cars, remote surgery, etc. Frankly, in the age of COVID, a lot of businesses have to rely on remote work. And actually, some pretty cool technologies have been developed to support these remote workflows. Increased net infrastructure, speed, and reliability is something that could seriously assist in the production of these emerging technologies. And since Apple's announcement last Tuesday that the new iPhone will be 5G, it's now accessible in our lives. As a result, all the major cell phone providers, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, etc., now have 5G capabilities. But each has a different implementation, so the speeds, coverage, and experience are totally different. Several news outlets, YouTubers, and other individuals have published their reviews of current 5G infrastructures. I've linked one from The Verge in the description below, but the biggest thing that they've mentioned is that we have a major implementation issue here. How do you use a technology that hasn't even been totally built yet? To answer this, we need to take a look at how these signals work. There are three main kinds of 5G: low band, mid-band, and high band. These refer to the megahertz signals used to transport your data, and they're each good for different things. If we remember our knowledge of the electromagnetic spectrum, we know that lower frequency signals are capable of traveling further, though quality will deteriorate over distance, and higher signals move faster, meaning they can transmit more data, or in this case they're called higher bandwidth, but they aren't able to travel as far. Think of AM versus FM radio. AM is a lower frequency than FM. That's why you may have noticed you'll lose an FM signal faster than an AM, but the FM signal will usually, if not always, be better quality than the AM. In the case of 5G, low band represents the 600 MHz and 850 MHz signals, and has the longest range of the three 5G types. It's supposed to be able to penetrate walls and concrete the best, meaning your internet inside of buildings or underground would still be strong, but you might have Wi-Fi in those places anyway, so. Also, the speeds on low band aren't that much faster than the speeds you can currently get in really strong places with 4G LTE. In fact, 600 MHz is the same area of the spectrum in which 4G LTE currently operates. The 5G implementation is just relying on lack of current traffic on those bands and new transmission technologies to offer faster speeds on the same frequencies. So yeah, coverage is more consistent, but the speed is not that mind-blowing. It therefore follows that high band is the opposite. It's blazing fast, incredibly satisfying to use, but incredibly spotty. High band frequencies have the shortest range of any of the three, and they're also really bad at passing through walls and buildings, meaning providers have to put up a bunch of nodes everywhere for consistent coverage, which is just time-consuming and expensive to do. So high band is speedy but spotty, low band is strong but kind of slow, mid band is, well, in the middle. It's the 2.5 gigahertz range of the spectrum, and it's way faster than 4G, though not as fast as high band frequencies. But it is stronger, though not as strong as low band. It's in the middle and has been described as the sweet spot. It's fast enough to make a huge difference from the user perspective and strong enough to provide consistent coverage. The signals themselves are the same. The only experiential difference you get provider to provider is the configuration of how they're using the low, the mid, and the high frequency, and how they've set up their network to provide coverage. Verizon, for example, according to reviews, is super fast, super smooth, but only when it's strong. It's incredibly spotty because, at least currently, it bases its entire plan around high band frequencies. Verizon has announced plans to roll out low band implementation later this year. Currently, T-Mobile's implementation is actually kinda kicking butt. They're focusing on high band and low band and using Sprint's infrastructure for mid-band. And though their low band speeds aren't much faster than current 4G LTE speeds, their mid-band speeds are way faster. And they're the only one of the major providers to have coverage in all three bands. AT&T is more like Verizon. No mid-band, only spotty high band. Also, they're currently promoting something they're calling 5GE. Like, sometimes you'll see that pop up in your little status bar, and that is fake. It just means you have a strong 4G signal and they want you to feel like you're in the future, but don't be fooled. If you don't upgrade to a 5G phone, you can't use 5G networks. But 5G doesn't just mean changes in internet speeds. It also means changes in transmission technologies, which will be complex to implement, but theoretically incredible to use. 5G networks have driven advancements like carrier aggregation, where multiple LTE bands are combined into one stream of data. So the data over the streams flows n times as fast, where n is the number of bands that have been combined. There's also multiple input, multiple output antennas, or MIMO. Lots of little antennas combined into an antenna array to improve connectivity. All this infrastructure would be challenging enough to install without the apparent public health concerns. Yup, two major health concerns have emerged surrounding 5G, and one is immensely less plausible than the other. Firstly, many people have raised concerns about whether the radiation produced by such high-powered waves could be dangerous to humans. It is true that at like super ultra high band speeds, you can cook airplane food by using an antenna. So does the 5G that's being rolled out now pose a risk to our health? According to most research, probably no. The frequencies used to support these mobile networks are less powerful than those required to cook a chicken. OSU published a study they did in early June on the effects of 5G radiation on embryonic zebrafish, which apparently develop in a way that is very similar to humans. So there's your fun fact for the day. Their publication said, quote, "They found no significant impacts on mortality, how the embryos formed, or the embryo's behavioral response to light. They did find a modest impact on a test that measures the embryo's response to a sudden sound that they will investigate further. Future research will look at the 5G radiation effects on the same zebrafish used in a study at a gene level as they develop from embryos to adults. The researchers also would like to study the impacts of higher frequencies and higher exposure levels on zebrafish to keep pace with the changing cell phone industry." I did find a few sites that were weary, however, notably because there's apparently discussion of revising the radio frequency radiation exposure limit adopted by the Federal Communications Committee in 1990. According to these articles, a behavioral change in rats recently exposed to microwave radiation caused enough alarm to motivate a group of scientists to call for a review of the existing regulation, which was deemed especially necessary given that these regulations were based on experimentation that had taken place in the 1980s. That, however, would relate more to radiation from all of our devices, like microwaves included. So I'm encouraged to see that the majority of sources that I checked thought that 5G was safe. I really want to talk about the second public safety risk that has people concerned, though, because I think it represents a much bigger issue. Some people believe 5G waves can cause and/or spread the coronavirus. Bro, I really wish I was kidding about this. Individuals convinced 5G was responsible for the global pandemic have burned down 77 cell towers and attacked multiple employees from a mobile carrier company. One employee was even stabbed and hospitalized. And despite much evidence to suggest, nay, prove that 5G has nothing whatsoever to do with COVID, these attacks are still going on. One mobile UK spokesman is even quoted as saying, "Daily attacks are very low now, but have not stopped entirely." Over 100 attacks on infrastructure and human beings, which have actually successfully caused significant damage, and all based on some viral fake news. Like, just where do they get the time? I guess it's a global pandemic. A lot of us got a lot of time. But I can't even find this funny, because real people have actually gotten really hurt. And this is not the first time. COVID 5G, trademark, is just one symptom of a truly viral infection. The spread of fake news on social media and our tendency to find ourselves in information filter bubbles online has led to a real distortion of reality that has divided us from one another. This will probably be a video in itself, so I will move on from this from now, but I will just say, tell everyone you know to watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. Obviously watch it yourself because that will be a prereq when I do make this video. And two, just remember that COVID 5G and Pizzagate and all of that are just continuations of this pattern of viral fake news having real violent consequences. Social media sites have started improving controls to try to combat the spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories like this, but as is true with most cybersecurity things, it's gonna come down to us. You need to keep doing your research. You need to keep checking your sources. Please, for the love of God, read the whole article. If you share the article after just having read the headline, you are part of the problem. Also, speaking of security concerns, would it really be a Rainbow's production if we didn't go over them? I think not. Let's talk about the major vulnerabilities and security concerns that 5G has posed. Remember when Donald Trump was all like, we need to ban TikTok because it comes from China. We can't have anything from China. China's spying on us. The China virus. China is scary and I'm scared of China. Me, Donald Trump, scared China. I don't know, something like that. He doesn't speak in full sentences. He just kind of repeats like keywords, but I think that was the gist. But yeah, you probably remember him trying to ban TikTok. How could you forget? It was like a month ago or yesterday in Corona years. Well, turns out most, if not all, 5G tech is coming from China. If you're not a xenophobic racist, what are you doing here? Get out. Sorry. If you're not a xenophobic I didn't ask for you. All I said was xenophobic Oh. If you're not a xenophobic racist, you know, like the President of the United States, the fact that these technologies are coming from China itself should not alarm you. A lot of our modern technology was invented and or manufactured in China. However, US officials have apparently been long concerned that one of the major telecom companies responsible for 5G production, Huawei, could potentially or is already using its technology to spy on its users. Apparently, when the international community as a whole was considering bids from tech companies on 5G technologies, US officials reached out to their allies in Germany and the UK, saying they had evidence that Huawei was building backdoors for government espionage into their supposedly secure technology. The US says they'd known Huawei had used spying technology for over a decade, but just chose to keep this information highly classified. That is, of course, until it became clear that Huawei was widely preferred to become the provider of 5G technologies globally, rather than say, oh, I don't know, an American company. The US had led the technological way with 4G, and they no doubt expected to do so again with 5G. The White House has been attempting to encourage domestic development of 5G technologies for a while, offering tax breaks to American telecom companies, but since many of those companies have actually been employing international research and technologies, these efforts could actually slow or hobble our 5G implementation more than anything else. But that hasn't stopped the White House. The US actually recently arrested Meng Wanzhou, the daughter of the founder of Huawei and the company's chief financial officer. This would be like China arresting the CFO of Microsoft if that person were also Bill Gates' kid. This was apparently done in retaliation for her having allegedly violated US sanctions on Iran. But if we know one thing about timing in politics, it's that it's never convenient, it's deliberate. Ironically, the same day as the arrest, Trump announced that he had an extraordinary meeting with the Chinese president, which, even if it was true, doesn't seem to have sustained, as the Chinese embassy has stated about the arrest that it seriously harmed the human rights of the victim, and that they would take all measures to resolutely protect the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese citizens. Probably the most ironic part is that the US government is accusing Huawei of something that they, for years, have been pressuring American tech companies to do. Since the invention of the internet, the US government has been trying to get companies to build them backdoors, break their own encryption, or even simply guarantee that no private citizen could have adequate protection against them should they attempt to try to compromise that person. You may remember the landmark case in 2016, beginning of the FBI's long-running feud with Apple over security, when the tech giant refused to break into the iPhone of a murder suspect. Apple said that not only did its encryption mean that they didn't have access to their customers' passwords, they also made the key point that if they were to build a backdoor for the government, that backdoor would doubtless be used by countless others as well. But this doesn't matter to the government, apparently. Bill Barr has been pressuring Facebook to weaken its encryption for law enforcement as well, a trend that found its origins during the crypto wars, where the US government classified encryption techniques as a weapon of war in an attempt to prevent anyone other than them for using it online. This behavior is even more outrageous to me when you consider how many NSA hacking tools have been leaked online in recent memory. The Snowden revelations, the shadow brokers on Twitter, even the evidence that was left behind when Stuxnet was wormed. Government secrets have absolutely no guarantee of remaining secret, especially in this day and age. It's essentially guaranteed that if such a backdoor existed, either through experimentation or an internal breach, some hacker somewhere would break it down and then share the battering ram across the forums. And finally, something that's really important to consider and that really doesn't get talked about enough. Any new addition to the Internet of Things creates a new attack surface for hackers of all flavors. In essence, if it's internet connected, it's hackable. And the integration of 5G is only going to continue the already booming trend of connecting all of your devices to one another. Modding your house, I'm looking at you, Alexa. The Internet of Things, which is already famously insecure, will be flooded with even more badly configured devices running new and untested protocols with any number of 0 days. A quick Shodan search will tell you that very few people today can even manage to change the default passwords on things. It's like free printers and free webcams. In fact, one of my first viral videos on TikTok was a series documenting insecure devices on the internet. As more and more small, unassuming devices are connected to the internet, more and more intimate attack surfaces are presented. But the more integrated these devices are, the less they'll be thought about. Thus, the more vulnerable they become. And that's incredibly good for hackers. In 2018, a Las Vegas casino was breached via a vulnerability in a smart thermometer that was installed in a lobby fish tank. Think about that the next time you're considering a smart speaker, or desk, or sensor, or door lock. Increasingly, we see devices being connected to the internet and left vulnerable that are related to incredibly important functions. Air conditioning, power, vehicle operations. If you don't know who Barnaby Jack is, I beg you to Google him. He's a legend, and his legacy is incredible in this community. His loss was felt deeply. He's the one who showed us how to wirelessly hack ATMs and even pacemakers. I have heard of hospital devices on which people's lives depend that are running Windows XP. These devices literally control whether people live or die. Many people's lives are being entrusted by a vendor who is marketing themselves as safe to Windows XP, a retired operating system with many known vulnerabilities. Like how is this allowed? Remember the WannaCry ransomware? On its extensive list of victims were MRI machines, traffic cameras, and blood storage refrigerators. A botnet on 5G? I'm afraid. And these smart devices can be used in botnets. I've seen botnets made out of light bulbs and vending machines. Now, is the vulnerability of the Internet of Things the fault of 5G? Absolutely not. This way predates that. Am I saying we should somehow try to resist advancement just because of vulnerability? Absolutely not. Where there is progress, there is risk. Nothing will ever be totally secure, and it will always be our responsibility to be checking for and mitigating risks. But it is my hope that we can use the onset of 5G to revisit our own security practices, tighten up our networks, evaluate how many devices we have online and limit or secure them, get educated on how these devices actually work so we can control them rather than having them control us. Basically, 5G boils down to this. If you switch to 5G now, you're going to experience all the bugs, interruptions, and security flaws associated with a brand new release that exposes you on a brand new platform. I will definitely make another video on the Internet of Things, go into more depth on all of this, and on Shodan as well. But if you have more information on this or anything you would like to request be included in that video, please mention in the comments down below. And please be my friend because you seem very cool. Also, y'all know by now, but this video is made in partnership with Grizzly Information Security Solutions. They're an internet of good things. And if you came from TikTok or the Discord server, this special hello is for you. I love y'all. Stay safe. Until next time.
I leave my window open, pretend you'll come inside. Can't fix what isn't broken, can't miss what isn't mine. I drive around the city so I don't go.
That's That's why you may have noticed you'll lose an FM signal faster. You stayed for the cutscene. Oh, hello. Do you want to comment your favorite movie? That'd be a good way for me to tell, like, if you were one of the people who watched to the end to see these. But also just like, I want to know what's your favorite movie. What's your favorite movie? Or TV show? What's your favorite movie or TV? Do you have any recommendations for the stuff that I should watch? I would love to know that. Also, hi.